Hello, single Fruit Loop watching this. As you can tell by the music in the background, that isn't Animal Crossing. Today we are doing a bit of a different video. Today I am going to be talking about my journey with Skylanders, and why to this day, even with all the lack of content, I still hold it near and dear to my heart. In the background, I wasn't actually planning on making this video today, but I finished a job interview and am raring to go. So, as you can see in the background, I am just drawing our little favorite tiny tyrant. Our dear, sweet Kaos. He's horrible and I love him. It's funny, I was actually scared of him at first, but we'll get to that later. To begin our story, we need to start all the way back when Skylanders Spyro's Adventure first came out. I was little. I was tiny. I was in grade school. One of the first grades, to be exact. I don't feel comfortable sharing my exact age, so I'll just let you all guess which one it was, but I remember one day. I don't remember if this was the first thing that started it, or what, but I came across these cards in the grass. And as we all know, if you played Skylanders as a kid, the original figures all came with cards. Or it was like, you get the figure on its little pedestal, and then you get the card to come along with it. And I just found a bunch of these. I don't remember if I was going into school or coming out of school. I just remember it was either rainy or snowy because they were wet. And I just saw them nestled in the grass, and so I was like, ooh, what are those? Those look cool. So I picked them up. Lo and behold, that started my descent into madness. It was first generation Skylanders. The art style is still being sorted out. It was definitely more grungy to begin with. It looked more raw. I still have them. I don't know where I put them, but I still have them. I think they're in with my Pokemon cards, but I stowed them away in my backpack and continued on my merry way. I remember I showed them to a friend who I'll call Wolfie. And Wolfie, he's definitely something. We don't talk very much. I'm still trying to get his old Skylanders, because, yes, he played Skylanders. He was the one that introduced me to the game. I showed him the cards, and he was like, oh, I know what those are from. Here, come over to my house, and I'll show you. So we hung out. I remember it was in his basement. I still remember the basement, because one of the times at his birthday party, which, completely unrelated story, one time, he didn't invite me to his birthday party because his mom said I wouldn't fit in because I was a girl. We all know how well that went. But I remember we were sitting on the floor, he brought out this, he has all the first generation Skylanders, and I desperately need to get them from him. I'm really hoping this job works out, because I don't know how much he's going to ask. He's generally greedy, so... which isn't necessarily a bad thing. He definitely knows how to hustle. I'll give him that. I would appreciate it if... there we go. But... we sat down on the floor in front of the big screen TV he had in his basement, and he turned it on, and we started a new save file, which I'm actually planning on replaying the games, and I think I'm gonna record them, because, oh boy, I love those things, and I have nothing else to do during quarantine other than play Animal Crossing and draw, and hopefully start a job soon, but... the main cutscene started up, and this was back when he still had, like, the heavily realistic giant floating head spell thing. I was terrified. Like, watching the initial cutscene, I was like, oh, this looks really cool. This is epic. Can I get more of this? And then he shows up. The giant floating head just appears in the sky. The little child me sitting there enamored with the situation, and then terrified. I remember I was viscerally scared of it. I thought I didn't show it, but that thing scared me. And also, if you hear weird noises, I have a donut and bubble tea because I decided to treat myself today. But the bubble tea was my doing, and the donut was my parents'. Thank you. I'm out of tea, I just have bubbles, so it's difficult. But I remember one of the first Skylanders I ever fell in love with. Like, not like love, but like, oh shit, this guy's so cute, with Wrecking Ball. To this day, he's one of my favorites. But I remember I kept getting killed because he wasn't very strong. And Wolfie never put any time into leveling him up. So it was just like, what do I do? Even on the first levels. Because he had played before and he wasn't very good at showing me the ropes. I remember that. Like, little Chowley was just like, ooh, fun game. I like game. He's always been one of the, like, hardcore gamers. I remember we used to play, Minecraft Hunger Games a lot together, but Skylanders was a big thing for me. Oh, thanks to him. He showed me the first game, he got me addicted to it. He bought me one of my first packs. I remember his favorite Skylander was Zap. So I'm thinking, if I end up getting the Skylanders from him, I'm gonna repaint Zap for him and give it back to him as like a birthday present or something. But because I want to get the Skylanders not only so I can make molds of the bases, so I can make my own custom Skylanders, but also to repaint the old ones, and of course to round up my collection. If any of you have any old Skylanders that you don't want anymore, hit me up, we can arrange something. Once I get a job, of course. But it was... Skylanders was one of the first games I ever, like, deeply got into. I was like... It was like a religion for me. I ate, breathed, and slept Skylanders. It was one of my first fandoms. It was... I'm sorry, I'm used to speaking in short form right now, because not my usual ramblings, because I just did a job interview where every segment was 1 minute only. And hurry. God, 1 minute is not very long. But I gotta calm down, my god. we played through, I don't remember how many levels. I think we got to, I don't remember if it was on the save file we started together or on his save file, because he wanted to do more on there, but we played one of the undead levels, I think it was? Or was the undead level at, my neighbor's house? I don't remember. But, again, I kept playing Wrecking Ball. He actually ended up getting me Wrecking Ball for my birthday that year. As my parents got me the mainline Skylanders game for my birthday, and, Wolfie got me an expansion pack for it. Because it was just... I actually think... I don't remember if they got me Skylanders ahead of time so I could play it for my birthday or what, but there I was. I had my own game, I had my own Skylanders. I grew to love Stealth Elf a lot too, even like to this day. Stealth Elf and Wrecking Ball are some of my favorites. Eventually I think I'm gonna draw fan art of them, because I can, but the game helps me through a lot. And I'm just going to preface that this story, like, through my life, I've dealt with a lot of mental instability and trauma, and Skylanders helped me through it. Like, spoiler warning, Skylanders was a comfort of mine. I used it to escape reality. I found solace in projecting my feelings and my emotions onto the character Kaos, which kind of started my decline into having him as my first ever comfort character, if we're not counting Shadow Link. But that's a whole other story. But even, like, to this day, I still consider Skylands an unofficial 13th realm to my original story 12 realms, which, lo and behold, there's 12 realms in that universe. The unofficial 13th one? Skylands. Because I'm a dork. And I'm really sorry for all the long pauses. I think while I was drawing this, I was role-playing with a friend of mine. That's another thing. Skylanders, segue, but Skylanders was one of the first things that ever got me into role-playing. Like, I never really role-played Pokemon. I never really role-played, like, any other quote-unquote fandom I was in. It was Skylanders that got me into it. I first on Scratch with, I forget his full name, but I called him Keldeo, because his profile was Keldeo. And, like, that's a whole nother story with him. I still kind of miss him, but, man, some moments were awkward with him. But it was role-playing with him, with Whirlwind, with Pokegirl Sky, or Kayla, and with Paige. Paige is actually the one I was role-playing with during this. That's kind of what sparked this, got me back into the fandom, was she dropped off for a while, and I messaged her, and then we got back in touch, and with everything going on in the world, she's kind of fallen off again, which I completely understand. I do not fault her for in the slightest. I'm doing the same. It's hard for me to focus right now on anything, really. But shout out to Paige. She's amazing. Really, really good friend at the time, and I'm hoping still a really good friend. We haven't really talked all that much, but, like, I have a lot of fond memories. But she's doing a lot right now, so. But yeah. Skylanders was one of the first things I ever roleplayed. It was one of the first stories I ever wrote. I remember jumping back in time, back to the first game. I had this running gag with my friends where Skylanders kept stealing my ideas, because I remember we created not like evolutions. We called them evolutions, because at the time I thought Skylanders were like Pokemon, where there was multiple of them. I was a weird kid, but we had this evolution of Wrecking Ball. We called it Wrecking Monster. Wow, look at us. Ingenious children. But that was me and Becca. But it was basically just Wrecking Ball with these giant fucking fangs. Lo and behold, I think it was the very next game, Wrecking Ball comes out with a variant that has giant fucking fangs. I remember I was brainstorming for possible game ideas, because Skylanders was one of the things that got me into, like, wanting to be a game designer and, like, writing stories. Creating, like, worlds and everything, and it sparked my creativity so much. But I remember doing this thing where I was like, ooh, what if there are, like, half elements? Or, like, you can have a Skylander that's half water, half life. And if you know the franchise, you know where I'm getting to with this. After I came up with that, like, I think it was the third game, I came up with that after I got the second game. Around the second game. I don't remember the exact timeline. But, third game, Swap Force. The Skylanders' ability that time. Oh boy, look, you can smack the head of this one on the butt of that one, and they have dual elements. Whoa! That's actually my least favorite game of the series. The animation took strides, but the gameplay in that one was lackluster to me, and I think it's tied with Imaginators for my least favorite game, not counting the phone games. I don't count the phone games. I think they're coming out with the second one, but they don't matter. They're not canon. They don't exist. That's a whole nother thing with how the phone game is basically just the plot of the first game with Portal Master sprites thrown in and AFK gameplay. We love AFK gameplay. My donut is melting chocolate. It's not a chocolate donut, it's Boston cream. I don't understand why there's chocolate on the bottom of it. But excuse my sudden food ASMR. I'm hungry. I'm stressed. Ah yes, Kaos and a choker. But you should expect this from me by now. I don't stay focused. Yeah, that was always a running gag with Skylanders, is how they kept quote-unquote stealing my ideas. Another one. This just had to do with Kaos's family in general, but I have the OC Mayhem, who is Kaos's sister. She's a cyborg. But, and that has to do with the whole backstory I came up for him. I'm probably eventually going to do a video about the AU, which I ended up dubbing Second Leaf after one of the roleplays I did, which I still really want to get back to. But one of the main roleplayers in it, Kindred, they fell out of the fandom, and like roleplaying's only fun when people want to do it, and I don't want to force them to do it just so we can continue the book. Yes, that was one of the first ever instances of me taking a roleplay and turning it into a book, and I love doing that. It's so much fun because you have the source material, and it's basically just you going back and editing it. it's just, it streamlines the process so much, and you have other creative minds at work. It's not just you. It's just, role-playing is fun, writing a book is fun, and merging the two together, it's like sharing your roleplay with the rest of the world. And that's actually what 12 Realms is how it started out as a roleplay, not a Skylanders roleplay, like an original character roleplay. And I ended up wanting to make it into a book, so I talked to the people that were LARPing it with me. We live action roleplayed at the time, but then one of the people moved away, and we couldn't continue because both of them kind of fell out of it. Luckily, I have friends again that like role playing. Not they're still my friends, but I have really good friend that role plays with me, and I really love being able to do that again. It sucked not being able to role play. Like I'd do it with myself. Get your mind out of the gutter. I would like to fall asleep. I would create these scenarios in my head, and I would role play with myself through them. But like, your imagination can only go so far, and having someone else's imagination to help me with that is so nice. But that's the person that has V as a character. V and Leighton in the Marvel roleplay we're doing. But I'm getting sidetracked again. Is this all just okay? And we stand me taking very long pauses and not stating why I'm taking them. But where was I? Sorry for my ticking. I don't like ticking, but I do it anyway. Singing helps me bring myself back. Sorry, my voice isn't that good, but I try my best. I enjoy singing. I might train in choir next year if it's a different choir teacher, because the choir teacher we have currently is somewhat homophobic. So, that's great. But, yeah. Skylanders got me into role-playing. It got me into imagining this world. It got me into writing again. I really want to go back and edit and rewrite the story I came up with for Kaos's backstory. Because, like, while playing the game, I always felt Kaos was always my favorite character. Even when he scared me, I was like, oh shit, he's cool. I realize he's not supposed to be considered cool, he's supposed to be considered dinky. But I have a type, it seems, and I love him so much. I remember, I hated when my friends would do this, but because I was always talking about Skylanders and everything, but they would tease me saying I had a crush on Kaos, which I don't. I didn't. Yeah, I like him. The only character I've ever had a crush on is Loki. Because, again, I have a type. But, Kaos is a good boy. I alluded to this before, but I like role-playing with myself. And while I was having a very hard time in my life, I would end up... One of the ways I cope is putting myself in the shoes of someone else. Even to this day, I do that. But, like... And I don't just mean, like, another person. I mean, like, a character. That's usually how I figure out my stories and my plots and stuff, is I'll take examples from my real life and I will put that in story form. But like how I felt really lonely and really sad at school. So I pretended to be Kaos. And I know that sounds really stupid, but he was always a comfort character of mine. And, like, we're gonna get into some really dark territory, so if you're not in a good enough mindset to listen to that, then I suggest clicking off of the video, but, like, I projected myself onto Kaos a lot. To this day, I still do. It strayed decently far from his character at times, so still keeping the core mechanic of he's a tiny tyrant, he's egomaniacal, and just a general asshat, but also there's reasons for it. Like, one of the things I always disliked about Skylanders is they had a hard time, like, developing character backstory. Like, for the main characters, like, we learn bits and pieces, and I appreciate that we learn bits and pieces, but a lot of it is left up to the imagination, which is also really good. But then there was also, like, differing differing things where it's like, on the wiki. And I know the wiki isn't made by the people who made Skylanders, but it was like, before Swap Force came out, the wiki said that Kaos's mother disliked Portal Masters and blamed them for everything wrong in the universe. And thus, when she found out Kaos was a Portal Master, that's one of the reasons why she has such a deep-seated hatred for him. Another thing was that he had siblings, 2 brothers to be exact, which were blessed with luscious flowing locks while he was a tiny bald runt, and thus his father cast him out. But later on we learn in the show, which I know doesn't have to carry over to the game, but I like it because from the 3rd game, I predicted Kaos's father was Eon. I predicted it. I called it. And like me and Kayla, we were, when the episode came out that, the final season of Skylanders Academy, which there was supposed to be more, but no, funding had to get cut. But when she was texting me, it's like, you were right. And I'm like, right about what? She's like, just watch the friggin' episodes. And I watched them, and I'm like, shit, I was right. I called it. And to think, it started out as a joke between me and my dad, where he was fooling around, because my name, if I had been born a boy, would have been Luke, which was actually one of the names I considered taking when I found out I was trans. But I realized I was trans when I found out. But potato. I do prefer Emil because it sticks with my original name and it's easier for people to translate into. But since I projected myself highly onto Kaos and they knew that, my dad was, I don't even remember how it started. It's just like, the big twist of the game is going to be Eon removing his mask, and it's like, Kaos, I am your father. And it's like, no! and I don't know what it was about it. It stuck with me. That would have made for such a compelling arc, especially in the game, because Kaos is the reason Eon is dead. Like, these games are made for children, but they can get dark. And, like, in the show, even, we know that Cassandra, Kaos's mother, was married to Eon's brother. Hello. I'm making a video. I'm done my interview, yeah. Good night, I love you. Sorry, my dad came in. But, just saying good night. It is late. It is 9:49, actually 10:49. This computer is 1 hour. 1 hour. Hello, I'm recording. I'm recording. I'm recording. Good night. Can you close the door, please? Thank you. But, I remember thinking that would have made for such a compelling story arc. And in the show, Cassandra is married to who we later find out is Eon's brother, Strykor. But Kaos is Eon's son. And it's not really touched on in the show very much, because, of course, it's a kids' show. They can't get into, like, adultery and being born out of wedlock and whatnot. But my angsty brain is just like, oh shit, that's cool. I like that. I like that a lot. Like, there's a lot of very dark themes that Skylanders plays on, and I love every bit of it. And that's why, with the stories I wrote and everything I like to do, I like to hone in on that. And call me edgy, call me whatever. I adore it. I love explaining the reasons why characters are the way they are. Kaos is one of the reasons for that. Like, he had such differing backstories, I made it my goal to explain them. To figure them out, to be like, okay, why is he this way? What are the markings for? And, like, in Superchargers, we find out that the mark on his forehead, the little, like, star symbol, is actually the symbol of the darkness. And it's also the symbol used on his figure in Trap Team. Like, his crystal in Trap Team and his figure in I said it earlier, Imaginators. His figure in Imaginators, the little star symbol on it, the one on his forehead, which he refers to as the Chaos element, is really the element of the darkness, which is the being that gives him his power. It's the being we have to fight in the end of Swap Force. Not Swap Force, Superchargers. It's the being that's plaguing Skylands. Like, up until Superchargers, we had seen the darkness, but it was just this gaseous ball of, like, energy and dark swirling clouds that was covering Skylands because the core of light had been destroyed. And, like, as more games came out, the more we learned. Yes, there was conflicting information because Activision didn't get their timeline straight whatsoever. Like, at some point, the character, who we never actually see, but his name is, I think it's pronounced Natty Bumbo, is said to be Eon's mentor. So we know that, like, more Portal Masters existed other than Kaos and Eon and Cassandra. And, like, all of those characters. Sorry, it's hot in here, and I have a jacket on, and I'm out of tea, but I can't pause because I can't edit. I need water. I don't have water. This was a bad idea. I need to pee. I might end up making this into a two-parter. This is already 30 minutes. I know I usually stick with longer videos, but since this is already 30 minutes... Introduction on how I got into Skylanders. Part 1. Here we go. I talked about... I have this great ability where I am able to ramble on about absolutely nothing. But actually, I like how that looks. Yeah. Keep it. Keep it. There we go. This is one of the best side profiles I've ever drawn, actually. I'm very proud of it. I should anyway draw mouths, but best side profile I've ever drawn. But yeah, I think I'm gonna call it here. I need to pee and get some water, and I'll be right back to recording. Probably post these both decently soon. But until then, thank you, Single Fruit Loop, for watching this. Actually, thank you, Single Lizard Gizzard, for watching this. That's a reference to Skylanders Academy if you've watched it. If not, you really should. Just put it on the background while you're doing something. It's very childish, but it's worth the watch. Especially the first season, not the best. Second season gets there. Third season, yikes. It's yikes in a good way. But thank you, Single Lizard Gizzard, for watching this. And I hope you stay tuned for the second episode of me rambling on about Skylanders and whatever else the fuck I want to. Good night. Hello, Single Lizard Gizzard watching. My name is Scrape, and I have decided I'm going to be splitting this into 3 parts, or 2 parts technically now, but maybe 3 depending on how my throat feels, and my emotional state by the end of this one. Last time I basically just did a general introduction as to my love for Skylanders, how I got into it. I tried getting into how it helped me and how it made me broaden my horizons and everything, but I think I just trailed off into the deep end because I was so excited I'm finally talking about this. For the longest time, I felt bad about liking Skylanders because I had been told by a lot of my friends at the time. Sorry, I have hiccups, I have water. I'm drinking water, but I was told for the longest time, my friends at the time, that because they didn't like Skylanders, they kept telling me it was childish, it was a stupid thing for me to like, and over time I just somewhat internalized that. Online, I really enjoyed talking about it, and role-playing about it, and watching the show and everything, but when it came down to talking about in real life like I usually did, it was difficult for me. Which is why I somewhat started internalizing how I felt, because I didn't feel like I could be my usual outspoken self around the people I trusted. And then I met, I'm just going to call her Shane. I'm not going to get into her story, that's part of, I'm going to categorize that under my school stories, which I think is going to be its own separate video. So that's a series now extended to 5 videos rather than 4, because I'm going to break the rest of middle school into 2 parts, where it's one about the good aspects and one about the bad. It's like the positives and then the negatives. One way I can describe it is like side A and B of X's. I'm so sorry if I'm saying that wrong, but his Animal Crossing series, where one side is his edited videos, and the other side is his live streams. Which, if you're not already watching him, I highly suggest it. If you like Animal Crossing, he's a really good YouTuber. His edited videos are very bite-sized and short, and I really appreciate being able to just cram a bunch into my brain at one time. He's also very good at building, and his voice is just... His voice is calming as fuck. But there's also so much emotion behind it. He's a really good YouTuber. If you don't watch him, please do. He's amazing. At least from what I've seen. I haven't actually talked to him before. I'm just one of the lowly fans sitting in the pews as he works his Animal Crossing magic. That silky voice. Anyway. Today's video, I'm thinking I'm going to talk more about the real-life repercussions I had, or that were caused by Skylanders. How it helped me cope with things. How I basically made it part of my everyday routine. And then in the next one, or at the end of this video, I'm going to talk more about the AUs, the story building, and everything I did with Skylanders, which I guess can play a little into this one, because a lot of the stuff I was going through and how I felt, I ended up putting into Kaos's backstory, because I needed an outlet. He was my comfort character at the time, still is one of them to this day. And when I didn't have a friend, and yes, this may seem stupid, because he seems like the last person that would ever be friends with someone like me, but he was a friend to me when I had no one else. Or at least when I felt like I had no one else. In reality, I did have people, but in the time I felt so isolated from everybody else because of one specific person, who, again, I'm not going to get into very much detail about them in this video. We left on decent terms with each other. I'm still somewhat afraid of them. Like, fearful of running into them, fearful of how they made me see the world. And, like, all of that fun stuff. But that's a video for another day. Fair warning, I said this in the last one, but I actually mean it this time. This video will most likely get fairly dark, and it will probably have some overlap with my, it will most likely have some overlap with the darker school stories. Like, that'll go more so into the actual details of the situation, but this'll go into more so my coping mechanisms and how Skylanders basically saved my life. Of course, there are other factors. That's just a catchy title, and I don't want it to be exactly just clickbait, so I'm saying it, but as I stated before, Kaos was always somewhat of a comfort character for me. And also, I don't have notes. This is just, I'm pulling it out of my brain as I ramble on. But Kaos... Actually, I think I'm going to change the music because we had this one. No, how could you? I clicked the wrong thing. But no. No. Stop. Not now. Firefox, close. Oh my god. Allow me to figure out which... Basically just reliving Skylanders Sparrow's Adventure. Still one of my favorite soundtracks to this day. Though, I love Kaos's battle themes from every single game. The first game's soundtrack just had such a way with it. Leviathan Lagoon. Crystallia Castle. I think Crystallia Castle is when we were first introduced to the Cyclopses, which I'm still trying to figure out the term I think of now is mob bestiary, because because that's what Minecraft called their kind of book that was in that style, but it's basically just like, I remember I was even like writing down all the different types of creatures and categorizing them into like the subsections and the sections and everything. I like this one. Let's put that on loop. There we go. But that's besides the point. I still want to do that eventually, but how long does it take for something to come into public domain? Because once it does, Skylanders will be mine. I'm just gonna march up to Activision and be like, hey, give me the bean. They'll be cowering in their gaming castle with all the Skylanders characters behind locked bars. Kaos is just there in like little Triptanium crystal, and it's just like, hey, give me the bean. No, you can't have the bean. You can't handle the bean. I want the bean. I swear I haven't had caffeine today. Well, I swear I haven't had caffeine recently. Well, I've taken my anxiety meds. I'm good. But this is probably in bad taste, but one of these days I will make Skylands great again. Fuck Trump, Black Lives Matter. Anyway. Where was I? Kaos. Like, when Skylanders started getting back into my life in middle school, I was starting to have anxiety around existing, basically. It was after the whole Zach incident. It was around the time I met Shane. We actually bonded over Skylanders. We had this whole thing where I was Kaos, she was Eagle Eyes Cinder, and we had been stranded on Earth because of some experiment gone wrong. And it was... God, I feel gross just thinking about it. Oh. This isn't about her. Forgive me if I take pauses while talking about this. I've always been very open about my experiences and everything I've been through, but sometimes it can get difficult for me to talk about, even though it's been years. I'm still feeling the repercussions of everything. I know I need to go to counseling for it, but in the moment, not the moment, I don't have her in my life anymore, so I'm doing a lot better than I was when she was there. But in my day-to-day life, I felt unimportant. I felt like nobody cared, like I didn't matter. So taking on the persona of Kaos, someone who is egocentric, yet thinks so lowly of themselves, at least from what I'd seen. Like, in the games, he's shown to put on such a face, such a high and mighty attitude, but he's told by everyone in his life, other than, like, Glumshanks, even he's just passive, not aggressive, but, like, especially in the show, he's very, like, sarcastic, that's what I'm looking for, but from what we've been told, like, from canon and everything, Kaos grew up in a very toxic environment. And again, I'm putting my own spin on things. My household is fairly good. Of course, me and my parents have disagreements, that happens, but my household in general is a very good place for me to live in. But school was a completely different story. I felt like an outcast. I felt uncomfortable, and I later found out that was a lot in part because of the fact that I'm trans. When you don't feel at home in your own skin, it's hard to feel at home anywhere else. And I have actually found a place where I feel at home, even more so than my own home, which is weird to say, but I've found a place. I'm in a much better place now. But I remember feeling so... I was drawing on the wrong layer. Feeling so disgusted by myself, I couldn't stand to look at myself. So I became someone else. One of my coping mechanisms for the longest time has been role-playing. Like, if I'm having a bad day at school, I would role-play. If I'm, like, if I'm not feeling good, or if I'm, like, having a hard time, I would roleplay. I would roleplay myself to sleep. And this isn't code for anything, it's literally just me playing out a storyline in my brain. And I understand some of that could have been unhealthy. It probably was. I wasn't learning to accept myself. I was hiding away under the guise of being someone else. And like, this is something else completely unrelated, but around the same time, I was role-playing Minecraft with some of my friends, and I remember being told I couldn't roleplay Herobrine. And this was with Wolfie and a few others. Futures. I'm trying to think of their usernames so I can use those. Wolfie, Futures. I think Melissa was there. But I remember being told I couldn't be Herobrine because he was a boy. I was a girl. So often when I would put on these fronts as these comfort characters, it would be a male character. Just to prove to myself that I could. Basically. And again, later on, found out, hey, you're trans, bitch. But most of this video is going to be pauses. I'm so sorry. But, one of the main characters I always ended up gravitating towards was Kaos. Not just because I loved Skylanders and I loved just the universe, the world building, everything about it, the art, the style, the music. Like I said before, I lived, breathed, and slept Skylanders. And it wasn't only because I lived that, but I saw myself in Kaos. I could relate to his character being overlooked, being overshadowed by everyone else, just striving and craving for someone to, like, realize he's there. And I think a lot of that was more so me just projecting onto the character. But I saw myself in him. Not just because I loved him as a character, but because there were, as close as you can get to a fictional midget tyrant, there were similarities between us. Like, not feeling welcome, not feeling like you belong. And again, a lot of this had to do with the backstory that I had given him, and again, how I felt, me projecting my emotions onto this character. fictional character, because that was one of the only ways I knew how to cope at the time with having those emotions, was like, well, okay, it's not me feeling this way, it's Kaos feeling this way. I don't need help, Kaos needs help. Yes, that might be unnatural or bad, but postponing needing to confront my own emotions in that time helped. It wasn't necessarily good, but it helped. Looking back on it, I probably would have helped more if I had been able to talk about it, like, from the perspective of myself, not from the perspective of another person. But, like, if I was ever faced with a bad situation, I'd be like, okay, time to turn on Kaos mode. And I would be able to deal with it. I've never been good at math. But when I was acting like Kaos, I found it was a lot more enjoyable. Because he's always been a character that just seems so analytical to me. Because he's able to create these machines to do his bidding, and he's able to do magic, and what he doesn't have in physical strength, he makes up for with his brain, which I always admired, because I've always been the same way. I've always had asthma, so I've never been able to do much, like, when it comes to physical activity. Gym was always one of my weakest subjects, and he was always just one of those characters where it's like, I could see myself, if I was in his shoes, doing the same thing. Not like attempting to take over Skylanders and killing my own dad, but just the thought of, like, being angry, wanting to lash out. Well, and, like, again, this is more of me projecting, but he ended up taking his anger and funneling it into taking over Skylands, showing people he is a force to be reckoned with. He's a problem, because nobody ever gave him the time of day. Rather than doing that, I funneled my time and my effort into writing, into drawing, into creativity. And I wasn't very good at it back then, but it helped me improve. And a lot of that was Skylanders. It was plotting out Kaos's backstory. To this day, I never wrote it down, but I remember every single plot point I made for his backstory. I remember almost every single plot point I made for the origin of Skylands, for how the ancients came around, the elementals. I know it was technically explained in Imaginators that they're literally Activision. I don't like that answer. I don't believe in that answer. that hashtag not my Skylands. But there would be days where M as a person couldn't function, but Kaos could. There would be days where I didn't want to get out of bed, but Kaos would. Because Kaos, I had never been a vengeful person. Kaos was. I know this probably sounds so stupid. Like, just saying it out loud, I sound like I'm insane. But being able to put on that front of someone you're not helped immensely. I felt found. Especially because not only did I put on the front of the character, like, not only was I Kaos in this situation, I would have these scenarios playing out in my head where, like, it was like, the scenario I had a lot of the time was, like, and this is more to do with the backstory I came up with for Kaos. I came up with for Kaos, but it was like the Portal Masters attempting to figure out who the next batch of who they were going to train would be. And so I would have these internal monologues of, like, Eon and some of the others just talking, being like, well, that one seems like they have potential. Oh, what about that one? And then, like, I always thought that Eon, the reason Kaos had such a vendetta against Eon would be because basically, Eon put his trust in Kaos and trained him, but ultimately wasn't there for him when Kaos needed it most. Which is how I felt a lot of time about the people I looked up to, my friends. Like, when I needed the most, I felt like they weren't anywhere. And so I funneled that into Kaos. Because I always thought he was stronger than me. If I could just be Kaos, I would be strong. I would be able to take all I was going through, and I'd be able to make it through. And I did make it through. And of course, there's a lot more to do than just being Kaos. Like, more than just that single coping mechanism. There's more I did, more that, like, I got help. I got out of the situation I was in. Not by my choice, really. Because I was a stupid, dumb child. I'm not saying I let the situation I got into happen. I'm just saying I didn't do as much as I could to get out of it. But being Kaos helped me cope with it. It wasn't me going through the trauma, it was Kaos. It's like when you write a tragic backstory for a character. This was Kaos's tragic backstory. People I thought I loved, that cared for me, end up ultimately backstabbing me and betraying me. It wasn't me that had to go through it. I'm fine. It was Kaos. That happened to Kaos. Things that, like, there was more to it than just that. That's the easiest way I can put it into words, though, is rather than having myself go through the situation, I put Kaos through the situation, and yes, it was still me. It was still that. It was still me doing everything I did. It was still me getting put through that trauma and getting physically and mentally abused by a person I considered my first ever actual partner, my first ever actual girlfriend. And projecting a lot of that onto Kaos helped me cope with it. Whether it be the adult version of Kaos that had already gone through all of that had already had his hardships and knew how to cope with them better than I did, or whether it be like the young version of Kaos, going through the hardships, having to deal with all of that. It was difficult, to say the least. I'm so sorry this is one of my usual upbeat, kind of all over the place videos. It's still all over the place, but I like both showcasing the good and the bad of situations I've been in. To highlight that, yes, shit's gonna happen. but I was Irish there. Shit's gonna happen, man. But there are ways to get through it, and it's easier looking back on it and seeing the good of a situation. But, like, again, projecting myself onto Kaos, I learned a lot about, like, role-playing, about acting, putting on a brave face. It was a coping mechanism I still use to this day, not only with... I actually haven't used Kaos in a long while, but with, like, Loki, sometimes Leighton, sometimes Tazen or Krona, or my original characters. I've actually started using Kaos a little more recently since Paige came back into my life, which I'm really happy about, because we can get back to role-playing again. Not just because we can get back to role-playing, but she was a really good friend of mine. And I'm glad that she's okay. Like, right now, nothing in the world's really okay, but it will be. Yeah. I'm probably going to cut this one here, and then continue with this in another more upbeat one about the books I wrote, about all the storylines and stuff I created, about role-playing, writing, and all my creativity and stuff. If not tonight, then a little later, because I am actually very emotionally tired from this. But thank you, Single Lizard Gizzard, for watching this. I'm really sorry this wasn't one of my usual more upbeat videos, and I will put warnings in the description for this, and I hope the warning at the beginning sufficed. But thank you for watching to the end of this. Again, if you have any extra Skylanders you don't use anymore, or don't want anymore, or like anything really, feel free to contact me about it, because I am currently looking for old Skylanders, because I want to flesh out the rest of my collection. I'm a bit of a hoarder when it comes to them, and I'm a completionist, and if there's ways I can get at least one of every Skylander, I don't really care about the variants, just the Skylanders themselves, then hit me up. If you like this video, consider giving me a hate comment about how my interpretation of Kaos is stinky. That's actually a comment I've gotten on one of my really old speed paint drawings, but I'm actually thinking of recreating that eventually. But, thank you for watching, and have a good night. Hello, Single Fruit Loop watching this. My name is Scrape, and I know I said I was going to call it quits for tonight. This is the same night as the other two videos, but I just got really pumped up because I found Kaos' little battle theme. So I'm going to talk about this bastard, and basically the backstory I gave to him, and just basically the stories in general I created using this beautiful character. Though technically it's a different interpretation, more of an AU type situation, not this boy exactly. But me being a dum-dum, I didn't pull up any art of that AU Kaos. I do have art of all of the AUs I created, which I think I've gone into depth in a different video, not the AUs, but talking about the AUs I created, where there's Swap, or I guess there's Mirror, who, if you've seen the Mirror of Mystery, I basically took that and went ham with it, because I felt there was so much wasted potential with that expansion pack. Mirror of Mystery, who I called Mirror. Full name is Harmony Horvitz. For all of them I used Horvitz as their last name, except for Nightwalker. but we had Harmony, Horvitz, or Mirror, who came from the Mirror of Mystery. It was basically just the inverse of Kaos. The good guy. The one fighting with the, basically stoner trolls against the reigns of Evilon. Great names. I know, I didn't come up with Evilon. That was all Activision. You can blame them for the campy. Then we have Nightwalker, who's basically a what-if scenario where it's, what if the darkness had won? Like, all those years back when the Ancients, or my version of the Ancients, first battled against it. Well, that's how Nightwalker came along. It was the Horvitz family, or the Chaos family, whatever. That family had been in reign for thousands upon thousands of years, and Kaos was the next in line of a long line of tyrants. Nightwalker was the next in the long line of tyrants. I think his full name was Chaos Nightwalker. He just goes by Nightwalker because it's easier to differentiate, and that's the colorblind timeline. I call it colorblind timeline because of the fact that there's no light, and so everyone has learned to develop, because, like, you know when it's really, really dark and you can see things but it's all in black and white? That's why I call it colorblind timeline. And Nightwalker is actually the only Chaos that has blue eyes out of all of them. And there's a whole nother thing where, like, I wanted to take the whole thing about, like, how in Christianity, Jesus was, like, Jesus was basically born because God fucked Mary, but she was still a virgin. So that, I basically turned that on its head, and it's like, oh, the darkness impregnated Cassandra. We got this bitch. And then, of course, Nightwalker's older brother is just like, heh, nah, I'm supposed to be the next in line. Perish. And there was a lot of shit. I still really like that timeline. It's definitely very dark and gritty, not for the younger Skylander fans, but I might end up making fuller videos on all of those timelines and their storylines. And then we have Marked, whose storyline I never fully fleshed out. That was basically an angst character I created in a one-off prompt, which I just ended up rolling with. I actually ended up shipping him at one point with Kindred's character Wisp. They were really cute together. But he's kind of evolved into his own character that isn't a Chaos anymore, who you may recognize the name Void if you've watched any of my Marvel speed paints. But Void was basically the incarnation of the Reality Stone created in a lab to try to host all of the Infinity Stones. They started with Reality because that was the one they had. But, you know what, I'm actually going to bring up one of my favorite songs. Chaos Boss Battle Music. I want all of them. Give me all of them. Listen to that one. I've already liked this video. I had good taste. But Marked became Void. But today we are talking about the main thing. The King Kahuna himself, the main AU Chaos that I had as a child and still love to this day. From the timeline I will refer to as Second Leaf. If you've been on Wattpad, you may know it as one of the biggest Skylanders fan fictions in a long, back when I was still on Wattpad, it was one of the top trending Skylanders fan fictions. And to this day, I still want to finish it. I had so many ideas. I didn't even get to the point where corruption came into play, but we're not starting with that book. We're starting all the way back at a book that didn't end up getting much traction. But that's basically, you didn't need to read that one to understand Second Leaf, but they're all from the same universe. My Second Leaf is basically the story of my interpretation of Kaos. How through multiple role plays with different people and multiple iterations, I learned how to play a tyrannical maniac who really just wants a hug. And again, a lot of this stemmed from how they could never get his storyline straight, like his backstory, any of it, whether it be his or people related to him. All of it was just all over the place. I touched on it in the first episode, but there was the fact that he had two brothers, blessed with luscious, flowing locks, and he was a runt with bald head, but magical powers. And his father cast him out because he wasn't pretty enough. And then later on, we're told that his mother hates Portal Masters and views them as everything wrong with Skylands. And then later finding out he himself is a Portal Master, she casts him out. A lot of getting cast out. There was one main theme that, and if you haven't played the game, Cassandra, or Kaos's mom, ends up coming in as the third game, but there's a little bit of a discrepancy. She's a Portal Master, a dark one, but she's a Portal Master. But there was always been this running lot, and also we never meet his brothers. We later find out his father is Eon, which he didn't know. He didn't even know. He'd never met his father. But it's one of those things where it's like, there's so many discrepancies, and I can understand having different ideas. And again, a lot of this I got from the fan wiki. A lot of it's probably retconned in other games and stuff. But I was never satisfied with what they gave him. And thus, my quest began. I took the basic themes that I had seen. He had Glumshanks as a friend and butler for a long while. Never explains how they meet. Actually, it says they meet at Evil School. And then Kaos basically not guilt trips him, but guilt trips him into becoming his butler. And then Kaos always had a running theme of rejection in his backstories. Whether it be from his father, from his mother, from the people around him. He was never evil enough for Evil School. He was never pretty enough for his father, who later gets retconned into non-existence and becomes Eon. He was too magical for his mother, or not magical enough, or he was never good enough. So I ran with that. And also add into the fact that this was even before we knew Eon was his father. I was running with that from the very beginning. But he was born out of wedlock. I think that's the correct term. Where it's because I wanted to roll with the fact that his quote-unquote father disowned him, basically. I wanted to roll with the fact that he had siblings. I wanted those siblings to have the father be their father and Cassandra be their mother, but Kaos be more so their half-sibling. So I ran with that. Let me paint a picture. A broken family. Father is an adventurer trying to discover a new and exotic islands within Skylands, because it's an infinite universe. There's always stuff to explore. So he is always off. We have Cassandra, a washed-up portal master who got thrown out of her... Well, because Dark Portal Masters, which she was, had to basically flee because they were being hunted out of existence by the Light Portal Masters because they were seen as a threat. They were bad, not good. But on the side, she's also having a fling with a Light Portal Master because they grew up together. They knew each other. That Light Portal Master being Eon. On one of the days. So, Cassandra and unnamed man number 5. I don't know why number 5 is the thing it's the number I gravitate towards, but we have Kaos's quote-unquote father. Okay, I'm gonna call him Kaos's father, and Eon would be Kaos's dad. So Kaos's father and Cassandra. A failing relationship. From the beginning, I always imagined it being more sort of like not an arranged thing, but something Cassandra had to do out of necessity to have an alibi, so that she wouldn't be associated with the Dark Portal Masters that had been convicted and walked away. It was a relationship she agreed to more out of necessity than love. Trying to think. So they have their first child, Kaos's brother, who, and there was always a theme I had running with them, where it was, Kaos's brother was Discord. No relation to the My Little Pony character, though I do imagine John Delancey also possibly voicing him if that were ever to exist. We have Discord, the eldest brother, born out of a loveless marriage, yes, but when they still got along. The father goes away. He's gone for a long time. Cassandra and Eon run into each other. They re-meet. They rekindle their love. A forbidden love, which of course nobody can find out about, because they're of opposite sides. One's good, one's bad. They can't love each other. That's wrong. I ship it so hard. But then... oh, there we go. They have a fling. Cassandra hates herself for it afterwards. Eon flees. He's afraid. He doesn't want to accidentally get her hurt. And so he leaves. He tries reconnecting with her later, but of course, the father is back in town, and she knows she's pregnant. Of course, she attempts to, engage in coitus with the father to cover up the fact that she slept with another man. But it's too late. When she finally manages to, she's already along, and... well, Kaos was born prematurely. For the time he was conceived. Very prematurely for the time that he was, quote-unquote, conceived with his father. Kaos is born stillborn. He's born not breathing. That's what stillborn is. He's dead. He gone. Bye-bye. So, of course, Cassandra does the only thing she can do. She prays to the deity that her and all the other Dark Portal Masters believe in. Darkness. And what does the darkness do? It grants her wish. Kaos is brought back to life, but at a price. His quote-unquote soul or whatever now belongs to the darkness. The darkness, after fighting with the and this is a thing I have for this AU, where it's or say like Nightwalker is the next coming of the darkness and everything. In the Second Leaf timeline, Kaos functions as something known as a host. The host to the darkness. All of the ancients after the battle were reduced to nothing but energy, spirits, the embodiment of the elements. They are the elements. And some over the years, Dark Portal Masters have given themselves to the darkness to host it, to hold it as one. And thus it grants them their power, all the strength and the abilities that come with the darkness. But they themselves are still a person. But Kaos was different, because Kaos, at the time that the darkness merged with him, was dead, basically. The darkness has more of a hold, more of a grasp, thus making him one of the strongest Dark Portal Masters who have ever existed. Of course, he's a tiny baby at this point. He doesn't realize that. Like, we're told in the show and in the game that his power rivals even Eon's. And so, of course, Kaos is alive again. Like, he's himself. The darkness just basically gave him back his life. But he has the markings now. The little star on his forehead is referred to in the show as a birthmark, which is how I came up with that plot point, where it's like, oh, okay, so if it's a birthmark, he was born with it. So the darkness must have had to have seeded, and that's a bad way of saying it, it must have had to have been, like, planted within him since he was a child. Like, I always knew that I wanted him to have complications as a child, because he's weak, he's frail. And of course, being brought back from the dead, basically, he was only dead for a few moments, but at that young an age, and with all that fun nonsense, it's gotta have some repercussions, which is why Kaos is so short, why he's so physically weak, why he has trouble, like, growing hair, for an example. He's sickly, he's constantly in a state of dying. Like I said, I'm an edgelord. That, of course, comes into play later in the fact that Kaos can't really die because of the darkness inside of him, and, like, the literal embodiment of the darkness inside of him, and because of, like, he doesn't need to eat, he doesn't need to sleep. Yeah, they mess with him if he doesn't. Like, he gets even weaker. It's scary. He should, but he doesn't, because he's bad at keeping himself healthy. Because he just hyper-fixates on things. But I'm getting ahead of myself. So, as Kaos starts to grow up, like, as he was younger, he did grow hair. It was sparse, but he had some. But it was brown. I've always imagined Eon's hair when he was a child was brown. I don't know why, it just always has been. And I always imagined that Cassandra's, well, being black, and his father is blonde. Discord has blonde hair. He dyes it silver because he's edgy, but his hair is blonde. But nowhere in their family tree, on any side, does anyone of either family, though the father doesn't know much about Cassandra's upbringing, he just knows that she's mentioned that all of her family has black hair. Kaos has brown hair. Again, genetics and whatnot, I don't know much about it. I'm just sticking with the stuff I came up with as a tiny child. He starts to realize something's not quite right. Like, of course, Kaos looks more like his mom than he does his father. Which is to be expected, the father's not the father. You are not the father! Ow, my knee! But then, in an attempt to rekindle their marriage, which is slowly losing traction, Cassandra sleeps with him. You know, typical not good marriage stuff. Attempt to save it, they have another child. That's mayhem. Sorry, bubble tea. Mayhem, I think I mentioned in the first episode, is the final and youngest of the Hornet siblings. He or she, like most of them, is very technologically inclined, and she's smart. But this isn't really about her. This is about Kaos. So, Kaos from a young age was very inquisitive. He's always been very curious. He would always get into things he shouldn't. He would find ways of doing things that he shouldn't be able to. And of course, Cassandra starts worrying because it's like, she hasn't told him anything about Portal Masters, anything about, like, where he's come from, anything like that. And she knows because he was born of her and a light Portal Master. That's a whole nother arc with him, is him finding out that he's basically, for layman's terms, a mudblood. He comes from light and dark heritage. Which is also why the darkness had such an easy time settling within him. Because, plot twist, I've always imagined, especially since we found out Eon had the mark of the darkness on his forehead, which I think, I actually haven't figured out how that fits into this AU, but the darkness itself, Hector, what I am lovingly calling the embodiment of the darkness we see in Superchargers, is only one side of the coin. Because one thing you'll notice about Kaos is he's able to actually harness every single element. One of which being, like, not light magic per se, but we're able to see him doing things that, again, the only other Dark Portal Master we've actually seen in canon is Cassandra. But it just always felt odd to me that symbol was used as his element symbol and the symbol on his forehead. And, like, yes, it makes sense that he himself would call it Chaos Element because he's a narcissistic little bitch. But I remember coming up with the genius plot twist that the darkness isn't just the darkness. As I said, it's two sides of the same coin. On one hand, we have, when used in the wrong hands, darkness. Pure, raw, unadulterated anger, hatred, and rage. But when used correctly, well, both are used correctly, air quotes, but when used by someone with pure intentions, it's harmony. It's all of the elements. It's the epitome of power, but used for a positive rather than a negative. And that's why Kaos is able to use all of them, because darkness is basically just, it's void of light. It's when you take all the other elements together and you mix them up. Bam! There you go. You got darkness. Or you got harmony. Depends on how you use it. And again, that's just more like, that's wild fan speculation right there, but that's always been one of my favorite, like, AU things that I've done, is coming up with that. Like, I remember seeing, like, if we ever get an Eon figure, if the symbol is the same as Kaos, then I will have basically proven it to myself. Which we never did. But, you know, fun stuff. But, yeah. Kaos is sickly. He's not very physically well endowed, but mentally he's miles ahead of everyone else. But of course, being from a broken family, it's very hard for him to focus and to actually, like, put that to good use. His father's mostly gone, and he's grown to resent his father over the years because of how little he pays attention to Kaos and how little gratitude he gives him. You know, one of these days, because eventually I wanted to start doing readings of 12 Realms, which is the book I'm working on. But I want to go back to... I called it Skylanders Historia Book 1, A Tale of Darkness. Because it was a Historia. It was basically the telling of Kaos' history. There was A Tale of Darkness, A Tale of Light, which was Spyro, how he became a Skylander. And then there was A Tale of Harmony, which was the origins of the ancients. Like, all the elements, the original Skylanders, with Hikari, who was light. I have them all written down, but with all the elements, and then we had Yumi and Hector. Yumi was the main one, but Hector was basically her corrupted form. And that's darkness, that's harmony. And that's basically how everything got kickstarted. But one of these days, I think I'm actually going to end up doing a reading of that. I'm probably not going to be able to get voice actors or anything for it, but if you're interested in that kind of thing, please comment or message me on Instagram or something like that, because I really, really want to do something like that. Like, if you want to contribute, that would be very helpful. I think I'm probably going to use just Skylanders music for the soundtracks and everything like that. I'll probably voice act myself, but yeah, once I've edited it and everything. But if that kind of thing would interest you, please let me know, because I would love to do something like that. I'll probably do it anyway, even if it doesn't interest anybody, but it would be good to know if people would like my stuff. Anyway, it is 12 o'clock at night, in the morning, I guess. So I should probably wrap this up. I know I didn't touch very much on anything, I kind of just rambled about shit, but that just basically gave you an overview of, like, whoop-de-doo, this is a boy. He exists. Here, let me pull up the... No. Let me pull up the finished art, because I like showing that. No, that's the wrong one. Shit. No. Here we are. This is the finished doodle sheet for Kaos, the Tiny Tyrant. And this is more so canon Kaos, or the Kaos that exists within the Balance AU, where he isn't the son of Eon. Eon has a daughter, and Kaos and Eon's daughter, Liana, are forced to get married in order to ensure balance within the universe. You can thank Paige for that wonderful name, but I should text her, see how she's doing. Anyway, thank you so much for dealing with my inane ramblings for, at the end of this, it's probably about been an hour and a half. Not this video in particular, but all of them put together. But thank you so much, and I will be seeing you next episode. Good night.